Sometimes a company comes along that just reminds you how average the rest of everything else is. And if you need 14 minutes to explain what a product does, you're not explaining it very well.
What I was more interested in was the shifting in strategies.
How are you going to make money? Welcome to another episode of the segment show called Well Informed, where we talk about things and stuff. Ethan, What things and stuff are we talking about this week?
All right, so this week we're going to kick it off by starting to talk about the Taylor Swift industrial complex. After that, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl, because why not? And then after that, we're going to jump into talking about a browser that browses for you.
Okay.
Kind of crazy. And then after that, we're going to go into a rapid fire section where I'm going to quiz John on customer acquisition costs that we're seeing so far this year. We're going to see how much they actually knows about marketing. And then finally, we're going to conclude with the Johnologue, where John's going to talk about all things Apple Vision Pro.
Let's do it.
Good?
Taylor Swift.
All right, Taylor Swift. So to kick it off, I'm sure a lot of you saw last week at the Grammys, Taylor Swift won Album of the Year. But when she went up for her thank you speech, she immediately released and announced her next album.
That's a pretty Taylor Swift thing to do. You know what I mean? The normal thing is to be like, hey, this is just a reflection point for me. It's for me to take a victory lap. She's like, F the victory lap. I got an album coming out.
Totally. With that, though, there were some super interesting business sides of it that we saw. And it was the fact that immediately her album went for sale for, like, it was pre-order, pre-release sales on her Shopify website. But then when we looked into it more, a bunch of interesting things were happening where actually a few days prior, the site had a crash.
There was like an error on her website, I think the day before the Grammys. It said backend fetch failed. And for the audio listeners, I'll just say there's this word and it's just a gibberish where it says like Hernerigerd or something like that. And then it says DPT 321. And somebody on Twitter basically decoded this after the fact and said, so DPT 321. So 321 is counting backwards. So that's 1, 2, 3. So TPD would be Tortured Poets Department, which is her new album.
Correct.
So that's the decoded part there. And then that word, Hernerigerd, or whatever it says there, it's an anagram. If you unscramble that, it says red herring. So a lot of people thought that a different album would be coming out. It would be a re-release of some of her own stuff.
Taylor's version of one of the classic albums.
Right. But so I think that the code here is that that was a red herring.
Yep.
And that it was actually Tortured Poets Department. That's what everybody's saying. Taylor does a ton of Easter eggs. She's like a big Easter egg person, but she'll never confirm them. So this also could have just been an error on her website. I think there's application here though, because I think I've worked with brands before where it'll be like, let's say it's like an apparel brand. So you sell like sunglasses, apparel accessories, like sunglasses, hats, hoodies, things like that. Do like a sale on St. Patrick's Day that's like, hey, find something green on the website and there's going to be a secret discount on it when you put it in your cart. So like a little bit of gamification, I think there's some application there for really anybody who's selling anything on a Shopify site.
Totally. And we've seen Shopify does that themselves as well. But continuing down the Taylor Swift line, there was another interesting thing that people saw this week was that there's flights from Kansas City to Vegas for the Super Bowl. And what were the numbers of those flights that people saw? Yeah,
she got 1989. There's 2 flights from Kansas City to Las Vegas that are flight 1989, which is one of her albums and the year she was born. And then there's flights back on Sunday or like Monday
after
morning
the Super Bowl.
After the Super Bowl that are number 80, flight 87, which is Travis Kelce's number.
Yeah.
So American Airlines is getting in on the Taylor Swift.
And I don't think they promoted it or marketed it all, but of course the Swifties found it. They're tweeting all about it. It's got good publicity.
Well, let's be honest. Someone at American Airlines tipped off a Swiftie somewhere. And they were just like, you run with this, you know?
So good campaign on their part. And then the last thing I want to bring up related to this is that a lot of people are worried because the day before Taylor's got a concert in Japan, I believe.
Yeah.
And so they're worried if she was going to get back in time for the Super Bowl. But I think there was a tweet.
I'm just going to read this because it's hilarious. This is a tweet from the Japanese embassy. It says the Embassy of Japan in the United States is aware of recent media reports concerning the steps Taylor Swift will need to take in order to travel from Tokyo after her concert to get to Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. Despite the 23-hour flight and 17-hour time difference, the embassy can confidently speak now to say that if she departs Tokyo in the evening after her concert, she should confidently arrive at Las Vegas before the Super Bowl begins. This is an official tweet from the official embassy of Japan. Like, they're like, hey guys, look, we couldn't sleep last night either. We're worried about it too. All right. Everybody's a Swiftie. I think there's a comment on there that says Japan is a Swiftie.
Exactly.
They're like, look, okay, yeah, we crunched the numbers. We double checked them. We sent them to our numbers guy.
She's going to be there. She's going to be there.
Yeah, she sent them to the numbers guy in Japan. He said, it's all good.
It's all good.
She's going to make it.
So we're happy. It's going to be a good Super Bowl. Let's switch gears over to that real quick.
Okay.
So there was an article in Adweek that came out this week that said last year a lot of brands were spending a lot of money on different tweet campaigns throughout the Super Bowl, but a lot of that seems like it's shifting this year to different things on TikTok and other small platforms in the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. So it's almost like a shift in strategy versus being in the conversation day of to being on a lot of different platforms and doing more of a, I think they're saying like the Moneyball strategy, doing a lot of smaller tactics in the weeks leading up to it. What are your thoughts on that?
Twitter is one of the best places. The artist formerly known as Twitter is one of the best places to sort of create like hype around an event, right? And so they've always used like Twitter campaigns and Twitter pushes to hype up their Super Bowl ads and things like that. And now, basically the intelligence that is out there says that like Reese's, Budweiser, Doritos, a lot of these that we know will have that have confirmed Super Bowl ad spots have spent nothing on Twitter. Some of them haven't even tweeted in a long time.
Right.
The article kind of just seems like a, Elon Musk attack type of thing. Like a classic, like, oh, Twitter's gone downhill. And then basically this falls down political lines at this point. If you're one way, you think Twitter's gone downhill and Elon Musk is rude. And if you're another way, then you think it's the greatest thing ever. And I think the only news you pay attention to is the news that Twitter's amazing.
I think it was interesting that the article leaned into that. Because, that might be part of it. But what I was more interested in was the shifting in strategies here. I think we've seen something similar with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, where it used to be those 2 days that people did sales on, and now it's grown to the holiday season. They've expanded. They're looking for different strategies, and I think part of that is because the real estate on those days is so expensive, and so I think that's kind of what we're seeing in terms of the Super Bowl. It's another mini period of those, especially for larger brands, and people are trying to get creative and spend in more efficient ways.
There's some that are even like not doing a Super Bowl spot, but are still trying to like capitalize on it.
Yeah. And so one along those lines is Liquid Death, which has probably been one of the hottest marketing companies of the year of the past 2 years.
It's actually a water company, Ethan. I understand why you think it's a marketing company, but they sell water, in a can.
In a can.
For like $3. And so they had an interesting Super Bowl campaign.
Yeah, I think we should pull it up here. Because last week we actually made a prediction too that it was either you or I that they were going to run an ad for the Super Bowl. So clearly we were wrong with that. And here's what they're doing instead. It's an eBay listing. John, can you explain?
This is an eBay listing that says your ad in national run of Liquid Death cases. So basically, instead of buying a Super Bowl ad, you can put your brand on the side of a Liquid Death case that will go all over the
world.
The country, at least. There's a video. They got a hype video. They wouldn't be Liquid Death if they didn't have a hype video. So
big old fancy ads for the big game on Sunday, not big enough. At Liquid Death, we are cooking up a bigger, fancier, better, prouder ad than anything in any old football game. We so dang crazy, we auctioning off the sides of one of our beautiful boxes at eBay right now, and it's way better than anything in that old football game. Those things cost more than $6 million, and they only reach about 110 million people. Each and every week, more than 200 million people walk through the aisles of our fine retailers. How's all this work? Your ad's gonna go on 500,000 tiny little billboards across this great nation of ours. So what do you want to advertise? RVs, snake insurance, a new cryptocurrency that is totally not a scam. Make your dreams come true and get your ad on the side of a Liquid Death box. Bidding starts at just $500. Woo!
Woo! Classic Liquid Death stuff, So that was actually kind of a cheesy like video for them.
On purpose, probably.
But this idea, like, this is just another classic, like, I think I said it last week. Sometimes a company comes along and has a marketing team and strategy that just reminds you how average the rest of everything else is out there.
Totally.
Because it's just actually great. And this is incredible. I mean, I think the bidding's up to like $90,000.
It was 90,000 last night when we checked. I bet by the time the Super Bowl comes around, it's going to be well over six figures. But like you said, it's an example of Liquid Death continues to think outside the box in ways that nobody else is thinking.
I mean, let's say it went for $100,000, I think it'll go for more, but let's say it went for $100,000 just for fun. That's actually only 50 cents per 1,000 impressions if he's right about the 200 million people who walk through. So that's actually just like an incredible ad buy for you can't get a billboard for that. You can't get it out of home. Like you can't do a run of anything for 50 cents for 1,000 impressions.
Who do you think's going to buy the ad? What kind of company?
Triple Whale.
Yeah.
We're going to advertise the podcast on there.
All right.
Whale Informed.
You heard it here first. Whale Informed.
Let's do
Liquid
it.
Death. We'll see if they can approve that budget. If they approve the budget,
I mean, how dope would that be? Put Ethan's face on the side of Liquid Death boxes.
Exactly. For the next segment, let's shift over. I don't know if you've heard about this company, John, but it's a browser company called The Browser Company, and they have a browser that's not called the browser. It's actually called the Arc, and they recently released the Arc 2.0, or like the second iteration of their company, and they're claiming that it's a browser that browses for you.
That was the most confusing It's a browser company called The Browser Company. Yeah, but then they have a browser. It's not called The Browser. It's called the Arc.
It's called the Arc.
I did see this video, and basically the summary here is it was a 14-minute video to talk about their new product, the Arc 2 or whatever, that is a browser that browses for you. And at the end of the 14 minutes, I still didn't fully get it. I'm just saying, if you need 14 minutes to explain what a product does, like maybe you're not explaining it very well, yet somehow...
Did you watch the whole video?
I watched the whole video.
See?
And the video has like millions of views.
It has a lot of views.
I think that this is just the Liquid Death of tech. Like, they don't really have a great product, but they're just a good marketing company.
Totally. They're in their video too. We'll link it in the show notes. It does a great job of storytelling the brand. So I do give them a lot of credit there.
Yeah.
And the Arc browser as a product, we were looking into it, and it's interesting because you can search into the product and you click the button that says, I think it's browse for me. And what it essentially does is it browses through 6 to 8 to 10 websites, pulls them all together and summarizes the results in a temporary web page. And so it essentially skips that process of having to look through results in the search results page and then go to a website that has a bunch of ad. It brings the information straight to you. But
we went down the rabbit hole a little bit on this.
We did.
And well, by a little bit, I mean we got way the hell down the rabbit hole.
We finished a whole box of pizza while watching this video,
and then testing the browser. And like, so the repercussion for like a physical product brand would be like, let's say I wanted to buy a black hoodie, or I wanted to buy an all black outfit because I'm Ethan and I only wear black. So if I want to buy, black t-shirts from True Classic Tees, you could just search for like best black t-shirts for men or whatever. And it's gonna do all the work of like, you would land on this Google page and then you'd have to decide what to click. It's going to aggregate and bring in all that data together, and it's just going to give you one clean page. It's going to summarize, here's the brands, here's the positive and negatives, pros and cons, etc.
Right,
so it's going to try and use AI to sort of just deliver you a personalized experience there, which is cool, but it's not actually that innovative. Bing Chat has already been doing this. Bing is obviously search engine as well. So Bing Chat's main problem is just nobody wants to use Bing. And then Google has also been trying to give AI results on their searches lately. But it is a cool idea. It seems like they're leading in this category.
Totally. And they are playing into, it's definitely a David versus Goliath battle, them versus Google and Bing and a lot of these other companies. But they're playing into that, which we respect. So we'll see how it plays out. Yeah. But definitely great marketing around the product.
Right. Their YouTube channels got some pretty good videos on it.
Yeah, and a lot of views.
I think there's maybe could be something fishy about the YouTube channel. I think the main thing that we came across, and we kind of said like, okay, they're basically criticizing the ad revenue model where Google makes money on ads when you search. And then when you open one of these websites, you see all these display ads, and it just creates this bad user experience. And you don't want to scroll through that website with all those ads on it. And that was the main thing they were criticizing. And the main question I had as I was watching the video was like, well, how are you going to make money? Because it doesn't seem like they're making any right now.
No, it doesn't seem like it. And I thought when I downloaded the product that it might be like I pay for the product or I pay for the premium version. It doesn't seem like that's the case at all right now. They're really not trying to generate revenue yet that we know of. And when we dug a little bit deeper, we saw that it might be a B2B play in the long term, maybe like Notion, where it's free for the small consumer, but like more enterprises pay for it. But it's really not clear yet.
I mean, I think their play here is to just get acquired by Google. Like, can we beat Google to this tech, right, or this kind of like searchability, and then can we just get acquired by them, and that's the move.
All right, so remember that prediction. If they get acquired and when, John predicted the future there.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. All right, for the next section, I want to quiz you on some data stuff. You down for that?
I'm down for it.
All right, so what we're going to do is I have some data pulled here on the side for cost to acquire customers so far this year. So literally from January 1st to yesterday. Okay. And this is looking at Triple Whale data, so over 11,000 brands.
How much somebody pays in advertising to get a new customer?
To get a new customer. Okay. Correct.
And you're going to do this by what?
By industry. We're going to break it down.
All right.
So for the first one, you're going to guess the customer acquisition cost, essentially. And then from there, we're going to do like an over-under game is the next industry, more or less.
Okay.
So for the first industry, for clothing, what do you think the cost to acquire a customer is?
How much does a clothing brand spend to acquire a new customer?
Yes.
You didn't filter this data to like brand size or anything like that?
No filters at all. It's across all our brands.
Let me just start in like a nice, clean, safe space. Nice and safe. You know, nobody's gonna no controversy here. I'm just gonna say 50. On average, it costs a clothing brand $50 to get a new customer to try their stuff.
Okay, so for this year, it's actually way less than that. It's $17.
17?
So
that's pretty good. And I mean, most clothing brands that are at least selling online, they're selling.
And clothing is one of this is a little bit behind the scenes. Clothing is one of the more efficient industries in terms of how much they can acquire a new customer
for the hint,
versus the AOV. So there's a little bit of a hint there.
Yeah.
But the next one is fashion and accessories. Do you think that's higher or lower than clothing?
I think I was already looping them in with clothing in my mind, and that was bringing me up to 50. So I'm going to go with higher.
So it is higher, but it's actually only about $1 higher. It's
nice.
Around 18. So it's very similar so far this year. Okay. All right. So after that, health and beauty.
Okay, let me just, I'm going to think out loud here as I'm thinking through this. It costs $18 in fashion. I think one of the main advantages fashion has is that it's like very algorithmic on the platform. So like TikTok and like Meta, Instagram, and Google can basically take all of your products and sort of match them to people who are looking for that product.
Right.
Whereas in health and beauty, you kind of have to like sell it a little bit more.
Correct.
So I'm going to say it's higher in health and beauty.
It is higher, and it's a decent amount higher. So it's around $27. And one thing that I thought of as you were saying that was fashion accessories and clothing. They have lower AOVs, and those can be more impulse purchases. I think when it comes to a lot of our health and beauty products, which are a lot of cosmetics and things like that, it's a more thoughtful decision. There's also a lot of competition in this space. So because of that, there's a lot more consideration that goes into that purchase. The customer acquisition cost is a little bit higher. All right. So what do you think baby is at?
Baby, is it higher or lower than $27? All right. I have kids. I'm going to say, I'm thinking out loud here, health and beauty, again, you have to convince people a little bit more. So this is a little bit tricky because baby and clothing could have crossover, and there are certain brands that could be considering calling themselves baby when they sell baby clothing,
right?
Or they could be calling themselves clothing,
right?
So I think that advantage of like, Google and Facebook and TikTok being able to match your customers with your product exists in baby clothing, but other things like, like strollers, cribs, there's some really high ticket stuff in baby, and also people aren't as open to try something new in baby. Like people really stick with what, at this point, I have I have a third kid, and we don't buy anything new from any brands. Like we just know what we like already.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that the cost it costs more for a baby brand to acquire a new customer than it does for a health or beauty brand to acquire a new customer.
So it actually costs less, which you were on the right track when you started by comparing it to clothing.
Yeah.
Because it's very
some
similar
clothing
to the
brands.
cost for clothing. And
Yeah.
I think part of the reason that it might cost less too is because there's a lot of passion behind that purchase. Like the customer is in a big spending phase during that period, so they're willing to spend more. But baby, and I think part of it too is like this year we saw that baby was one of the industries that grew the most in terms of new customers per store. I think it was like a 60 or 70% growth year over year. So part of it's that industry is kind of going through a huge growth phase.
There's
right
a lot
now.
of babies from 2020. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, also the other thing about baby that is incredible is I've never seen the stickiest customers I've seen are in baby. So in terms of like, once they try a new brand, if they like it, they'll buy a bunch of stuff from it, especially baby clothing brands, because you have to buy a lot of baby clothing. Then they grow out of it. You got to buy a lot more. So that's like one of the best industries to be in for like long-term customer value, lifetime customer value.
All right. Last one, food and beverage. Real quick, higher or lower?
I'm going to go with my gut here. I think food and beverage is really hard to advertise. The platforms can't help you match it to the users. And it's hard to tell somebody how something is going to taste. And if it does something for them, like makes them healthier or something like that, then it's kind of in the supplement category and you really got to sell it. So I'd put it more next to supplements. But even if it's not that, it's just like hard to communicate how something's going to taste through a screen. So I think it's harder to advertise. I think food and beverage companies have to spend more in advertising to get a new customer than baby companies do.
Yep, you're right. Their cost to acquire customers is closer to $30. And I think a big part of that as well is that it's a consumable product.
Yeah.
People are buying it a lot. And so you might acquire someone once, but then after that, if they're not totally loyal yet, you're still competing with a lot of different brands for that next purchase.
They put it in their mouth.
Right.
And if it's not good, they spit it out.
Right.
Maybe not literally, but figuratively. They just don't buy from you again.
Totally. And like the lifetime value of that customer is a lot higher. And so I think they're willing to spend more to acquire that first customer, knowing that over time, if they become loyal, there's a lot of opportunity there.
They also kind of have to charge a lot for their products because it's expensive to ship them.
Right.
It costs more in advertising to get a new customer when they're buying an $80 12-pack of something.
Totally. All right, last section, the Johnologue. So a few weeks ago, you posted a few different things about the Apple Vision Pro, and you got input from a lot of different people. Since we recorded our last episode, the Apple Vision Pro went live. It's kind of going viral. It's everywhere. But I just wanted you to kind of jump in and talk about what you've seen there, what you've heard from some of those comments, and what are your big things that you're feeling around the Apple Vision Pro.
I got a ton of comments, mainly because I bribed people to comment. I said I'm giving away an Apple Vision Pro to people who are, essentially making a comment about what level of adoption that they would have. And I've found it's basically 4 schools of thought. School of thought 1 is we're basically worried about where things are going, right? So there's a movie and book called Ready Player One where it's based in Columbus, Ohio, where Triple Whale is.
Shout out to Columbus.
Yeah.
Shout out to Triple Whale.
There's this movie and book where basically like in the real world, like in the actual like physical space, people don't do anything other than like basically eat and sleep anymore. They spend all their time in this video game world called Oasis. It's like a virtual reality environment. And that's, school of thought 1 is people are like, I don't know, seem worried about this.
Right.
What if in 2 generations people don't know the difference between an in-person interaction and a virtual one? School of thought 2 is some version of just like full send. Like either they're like, I hate people. I love video games. I'm on board. Like just I'm in on this. I don't want to ever talk to somebody I don't want to talk to again. Or they just think this is where the world's going. You have to adopt the technology, right? But either way, they're just like, it's a foregone conclusion and I'm in. And then there's school of thought number 3 that is sort of this like middle road where they're like, oh yeah, it would be fun, for remote work, and it would be cool to go to like a football game or a concert, but I'd still want to hang out with friends sometimes and like go to some concerts in real life, but just go to some on this and stuff like that, right? So that's school of thought 3. And then school of thought number 4, that is more of an emerging school of thought, is that it's just, this thing is goofy as hell. I'm not putting that on my face. And that was I posted my stuff 2 weeks ago before they really hit the market.
Right.
And people were like giving me more serious comments. And then as more of these videos hit the market of people just doing stupid crap in them, more people are like, no, I'm out on this. Don't even send it. Remember when I commented before because I wanted to win this? I don't even want it anymore. Like disregard my previous comment. So that's like school of thought number 4. What's been your favorite?
I love the memes, and I think it's crazy how many memes have come out so fast. But one of my favorites is the dude hops out of a Cybertruck, slams the door with both hands, and I'm pretty sure the Cybertruck door closes on its own, but he slams the door with both hands, gets out, and he's like, and he's just power moving across the street at 15 miles an hour. It's
very
crazy.
confident in his movements.
It's crazy, but it's funny. Like all these memes, everyone's wearing similar clothes. They're wearing.
Do you think that it's
shirts.
an Apple play? Like, do you think this is their?
I don't think it. If it is, it's so good that everybody is like, yeah, that could be an Apple plant, but they would never do that. Like, it's almost too good.
Apple's so clean and branded that like there's no way they came up with this unless they just hired some like Chad marketing consultant. It's like, bro, why don't you just give it to a bunch of douchebags and watch the videos go on the internet?
And that's what it looks like. It's so funny.
Yeah. So those are sort of the 4 schools of thoughts on this. Here's my take. First of all, the concert virtually, if you could put on an Apple Vision Pro, go to a concert and it was like good, then the demand for in-person concerts would go down so much that you'd basically see Taylor Swift doing, in the US, she'd do New York and LA, and tickets would be like $3,000 to $5,000.
That's a great point. If the virtual experience is better than the current
or even
version
as
of
good
the
as.
experience, or as good as, then we're going to start to see a huge shift in those areas.
So if you really think that like, oh, I do some stuff virtually, some in person, it's like, well, if it's good enough virtually, then you won't actually even be able to do the in-person stuff anymore because you won't like those businesses won't exist. There won't be enough demand for them. So the school of thought that says like, I'm a little worried about this, I also am. I don't know, maybe I'm just an old man saying like, get off my lawn here. But I think that there's like a very like a vibration to, and I don't mean to be like a woo woo guy here, but like, I think there's something to like meeting face to face, shaking hands, belly to belly, as they say.
Totally.
And there's like a vibration that other humans put out that is the virtual interactions, no matter what, to me, I think would always have a smell to them. And maybe the technology would get incredibly good, but I think that, a generation or 2 later, like maybe my kids would lose the ability to smell that smell.
I hear you. And right now we were talking about, there's definitely a smell to it. They've shown the videos where it's like you could FaceTime someone and see their face, but it clearly looks off and not accurate. And we were relating this to AI as well. It's like when you use AI and ChatGPT right now, it's getting better and better, but there's a lot of instances still where it has a little bit of that smell or something feels off to it, and I think that's limited the mass adoption of it.
Even the stuff that's really great, there still has that like smell, right? So I'm also worried about that. I think that biologically we're not wired for no human to human contact, and I think we learned that during COVID.
Totally.
And that's what recurring theme in these comments is what a lot of people said. To kind of land on this, I think the biggest application here is for remote work. I think it could be incredible for people who work remotely, and it could actually give them more of an in-person experience and make them a little less lonely. It could also improve their workflows and make them more efficient, improve meetings, things like that. So to me, I think maybe the market for this is a little bit more similar to like the iMac than it is to the iPhone.
That's a great point. And along those lines, I saw a video where somebody had set up their virtual office with the Vision Pro. And like without the Vision Pro, it's just a desk and his laptop. But with the Vision Pro, he had like a screen. He was talking to his team over here. He had stuff set up all over his wall, and the experience of that space completely changed.
Yeah.
And so like I work in Columbus in Triple Whale's office, but a lot of my marketing team is all over the US. And so now, like when you said that just now, I thought about if I was remote, I have that set up, but I could literally have like each of my team members over here. It brings them closer, and you could, tap into them, ping them, talk to them. It helps to like make that experience feel more human. And I think that is where at least I'm most optimistic about the technology for it to improve the human experience.
I hope that that's essentially what it becomes, is just a business product the same way. Well, what's the application for an iMac or a really great PC? It's like video editing or media production, work, and gaming. And my hope is that the Apple Vision Pro essentially has that same application. It's like, you know, and it's like a B2B product and a gaming product, and the price stays high. But if the price comes down to an accessible point and the virtual experience of going to a concert or going to a sporting event or going to something like that becomes just as good as the in-person, then I think it's game over, right? It's
game over.
It will get mass adoption. People will start to use those virtual experiences more because they're more accessible. They don't have to travel for them. They'll be cheaper. And then I think we are headed toward like sort of a Ready Player One type world where there just won't be a lot of in-person opportunities anymore.
I think you hit it on the head.
There we go.
Is that the pod?
That's the Johnologue.
That's the Johnologue, and that's the pod. Episode 2's in the books, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, if you're an e-commerce brand that needs a scoreboard, needs to be told, you know, needs to know what to do with your data to grow and to hit your goals, then check out Triple Whale. You can Google them, Triple Whale, or you can go to triplewhale.com.
Awesome. Thank you.
Next time.